Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to another one in our long-running series of financial wellbeing podcasts. My name is David Lloyd. I'm an actor, a writer, a broadcaster, a man about town, or a man about village, in fact, in my case. And many years ago, my friend Chris Budd got in touch with me and said, "How do you fancy doing a podcast about financial wellbeing?" I said, "Financial wellbeing? What's that?" And so this podcast was born. And as indeed, well, no, actually, no, Chris Budd wasn't born then. He'd been around for quite a while. But he was born into this podcast. Chris, tell us about yourself.
I was born, David, in the finest year for music, 1967, the year of Sergeant Pepper and the Velvet Underground and Nico. How can you top that for a year for music?
It's difficult. Our other contributor, Tom Morris, is looking blankly. No, somebody's bell is ringing.
Somebody's bell's ringing.
All right, let me just quickly get that. Sorry!
Listeners will now be thinking, hang on a minute, was there a strange gap there in that interview? And in fact, it was because Chris Budd's doorbell rang. And Chris, tell us about what you were having delivered there.
Well, David, I was having delivered about 15 vinyl albums. And actually, there's a financial well-being aspect to this, right? Bear with me.
Oh, this is tenuous.
Because spending when you can't afford things is not a good thing. And I have this phrase called financial well-being junkies, where we buy stuff, retail therapy, we buy stuff to make ourselves feel better. And that's generally not a very well-advised thing to do, because you spend money that you can't afford and people get into debt, and it's a big deal. It's an important thing. In my case, I'm not a wealthy guy, but I can afford to buy some records. So I have a bit of an addictive habit, and I'm allowing myself that addictive habit of buying records because I love it.
Do you know when that doorbell went? I don't know if this is a reference. This is just a really Bristolian reference we all know about. But remember that lady who was asked? It was like 2017. Well, did you know there's going to be another general election? And she went, "Oh, not another one!" And it's a great gif as well. So that's what automatically pops into my mind when that doorbell rings.
I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I've got so many CDs and records, and all burnt onto a hard drive, and I've done some downloading as well. And if you play the first track on my hard drive and you play every track thereafter until the whole hard drive is played 24 hours a day without gap, it would take 137 years to play everything on my hard drive. And I've just had another 15 hours delivered. Although, to be fair, Chris, most of those I'll be selling.
It's good for everybody to have a hobby. Now, you will have heard another disembodied voice that suddenly chipped into that conversation before we even had a chance to introduce him. So, disembodied voice, tell us about yourself.
Disembodied voice. I am Tom Morris, a director and chartered financial planner over at Ovation Finance, who I'm sure if you've listened to this podcast before will know happily support this podcast and the information that we hope is of benefit to you all.
And Chris, of course, isn't just a record collector. He was the man that set up Ovation Finance originally and is the whole creator of the concept of financial well-being. And he wrote a book about it.
Two books,
on which this whole series of podcasts are based. Now, Chris,
go on. Can I just give a little plug at that point? We should also mention the Institute of Financial Wellbeing, which I founded. And if there's anybody listening to this who are financial advisors or financial planners or even financial coaches who are interested in this stuff, go and join the IFW. It's only 15 quid or something like that a month.
Yeah.
It's hardly anything. We've got our conference coming up in May with some awesome speakers. So please go and join the IFW and join in this fun.
Yeah, get on it. Get yourself a conference ticket as well. Well said, Chris. And ultimately, it's also trying to improve the financial well-being of the nation or the world maybe one day. But ultimately, we're trying to make good, but also improve the relationships that you're having with your clients as well. So yeah, please get involved. It's always good to have more members and more voices heard.
So let's move things on a little bit. I'm glad everybody's well. Hope you've all found that mildly diverting, but we need to move on in a moment to the purpose of today's podcast. But before we do, we've obviously got the most important thing, the thing I think that keeps people tuning in week after week or month after month, however often it is you do tune in. And that is Tight Ass Tomo's tip of the podcast, where he comes up with great suggestions about how we can save ourselves a little bit of money. So, Tomo, what have you got for us today?
Well, this one might not hit home to everyone, but you might have loved ones who do this sport. You might do it yourself. But we've just had the Masters Golf, which signals the start of the golf season, which I am super excited about. And I'm like a lot of golfers. I quite like playing with good golf balls, ones that aren't chipped and basically deserve to be in the bin. But I lose quite a few. So it's kind of this, do I want to spend a lot of money on golf balls if I'm going to lose some? Not really. So somebody put me onto this website called lakeballs.com. Fantastic website where they literally go around the US and the UK, going into lakes and finding all of these golf balls that have been hit into them, which, trust me, an awful lot do. They clean them up and then they grade them depending on the quality of them. And you can buy them for literally half the price that you buy that ball brand new. So I've now, unfortunately, got a bit of a taste for something called Titleist Pro V1s, which are like £4 each if you were to buy them new, or you get them on this website. Really good quality, about £2 a pop. So lakeballs.com, recommend it if you've got loved ones who might need a few golf balls, or you're even a golfer yourself, get on there.
I've recently taken up golf again, having not played much at all, and there is no doubt that many of those balls will be my balls that I'll have put there over the years.
I've got a tight ass topic golf tip. This is very niche. If you are a professional golfer on the PGA Tour, leave and go to the LIV Tour, and you'll get a $350 million.
Perfect, right? Exactly. There you go.
Excellent, good. Okay, so lakeballs.com. I should be checking that one out, I think.
Yeah, do. It's great. It's great.
Right. So, Chris, what's the topic for today's podcast?
So I think philanthropy is going to be the topic over the next 10 years that financial planners and financial advisors should get into. I think it's an area that financial advisors don't talk about enough, that people generally don't discuss enough. And whether you have, an inheritance to give, or whether you have more money than you need, or whether you just have a spare tenner a month, or even if you just have a bit of time to give, all of this comes under the banner of philanthropy. But there are ways that you can give that will maximize your well-being. And there's a lady who came on the first Institute for Financial Wellbeing conference, was an online conference, and Emma Beeston came and spoke, and I think she was absolutely brilliant. She really opened my eyes to so much. She's written a fantastic book about philanthropy and called Advising Philanthropists. And so I wanted to have a chat with her. So, let's have a listen to my chat with Emma Beeston, Philanthropy Advisor. Hello, Emma. Thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today.
Oh, thanks, Chris. It's really lovely to be here.
So, I would like to start from the beginning, from the basics, if we could, because I think we should unpack, first of all, what we actually mean by this word philanthropy. What do you understand by that word?
So it is a tricky word. We could debate it forever, and I don't want to go down definition rabbit holes that some people do and write massive books on it. So just sort of day to day, because I work in this space, I think the problem with the word is that people immediately think of a philanthropist being other than them. So, it's the billionaire, it's the usually a white American, your Bill Gateses, your Jeff Bezoses, that's who can be a philanthropist. So I like to use philanthropy and philanthropists kind of reclaiming it, I guess, for us as kind of that everybody can be an everyday philanthropist. So, giving is good, giving is human. That's what we do. It's part of our culture. It's we are generous. Something about philanthropy for me is when you are adding a bit more thought, a bit more structure, a bit more effort to your giving. So it's about it could be that therefore you're a major donor that's giving a significant amount, but it could be that actually you're thinking about your will, and you're thinking about, what do I want to achieve with this bit of a legacy? So it's all of us. Or it could be that you're going to gather with other people. I co-founded a giving circle. That's people bringing people together that pool their money, and then together they can make more difference. So to me, it's philanthropy is when you're kind of doing it with a bit more intention and a little bit more kind of long-term thinking about what it is you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Okay. And so there's two thoughts that come on. I'll just get them out of my head. I want to understand what it actually is, but also I want to understand how we do it to be happier, because that's what this podcast is all about,
Yeah.
about well-being and being happier. So first of all, you say doing it, and the reason I particularly want to just stop there is because it can be money, but it can also be time and other resources, can't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, philanthropy gets described as the 5 T's. So it's treasure, so it's your money, it's your time, it's also your talent. So if you've got skills and expertise that you can offer, it's testimonies. So if I can big up something because I've got a profile and I can add my voice to it. And ties is about connections. Can I link people? Can I bring other people along to my giving? So it is more than I'm not going to say just the money, because the money is really, really important, and every charity out there in the land needs the money to be able to do their work. But it is bigger than money.
Just tell us those 5 T's again. That's great. Treasure, time, testimony,
time, talent, testimony, and ties.
TYTHE, tithe.
TIES.
Oh, sorry,
It's
ties.
your ties. It's your connections. Can you bring your connections?
Got you. Thank you very much. That's great. So that's a brilliant way to start, actually, because it opens up the whole thing. Because I think a lot of people will think that philanthropy is for other people, exactly as you say.
Yeah.
But when you bring those 5 areas in, well, actually, I can do a bit of that. In fact, probably most people already do a bit of that, don't they?
Yeah. And then if you think about it over your lifetime, so it's like, well, what have I got to be a philanthropist? I've got, I don't know, give over millions and get something named after me. But actually, if we are volunteering regularly, if we are helping people, if we are giving a bit of money over a lifetime, we're doing a lot of good. So it's like, my £10 a month might not sound very much, but my £10 a month over my lifetime, is going to make some difference in the world.
And also helping out in your community, maybe you've got kids and you're helping out with the rugby coaching or whatever it might be. That's all part of this discussion then.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is, I'm a philanthropy advisor, as you know, and the reality is that I tend to spend a lot of my time talking about the money, because that's the tricky bit. Well, not entirely, but that's the bit that you're handing over. With my clients, they're handing over significant sums, and it takes a bit of work, and it takes a bit of thought, and it takes a bit of managing that relationship, and working out what they want to do takes time. So I do spend more of my time on the money, but the other things come into it, because you're saying, well, what else can you bring? How else can you help? What else, can you offer?
So I'm interested to talk about the dangers of that approach. Of wanting to put or insisting that your time comes along with your money, for example. But before we do that, let's get out some simple principles about, if you're going to plan your giving of time or your resources or your money, how would you structure that to maximize your well-being?
Well, I guess I'm going to come straight back that maximizing your well-being isn't the most important thing in that. There will be some well-being.
Well, I guess what I mean, I know that's not the first priority, that the giving is to help other people, but let's assume you've chosen some really good things. How can you then ensure that you'll get, because it's very easy to give, I'm thinking of homelessness, for example. I'm sure lots of us care about homelessness, but I remember reading long time ago that if you give to somebody on the street, you're giving out of a sense of guilt, which is not particularly good for your well-being. Whereas if you organize and structure your well-being to a homeless charity, you can see the impact, and therefore that's much more likely to make you feel. So that's giving both, providing both solutions, if you like.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think so. I think one thing that we can kind of try and guard against in terms of well-being is, the world is big and complicated and there's so much need. So one of the real common responses of that is kind of overwhelm. I don't know what to do for the best, or I'm just a drop in the ocean. And so people don't do anything. And that's a really common reaction because it feels too hard, too difficult, too big, too much. And so I think for our well-being, one thing you can do is just kind of take the mindset of what bit can I do? So it is, what areas of interest, do I connect with? And then thinking about, if you can focus, so it might be on homelessness, it might be on something completely other. It means that you can get to grips with that area, you can learn more about it, you can understand it, you can know those groups that you're giving to, what they're trying to do, what difference you're making. And you can kind of give yourself permission to say no to other things in a way that you can go, look, I can't do it all. And so I'm going to focus on this and I'm going to do this to the best of my ability. It might be one thing, it might be, we're all, we've got connections because, I don't know, there's a medical condition in the family and we're connected with that. We're connected with something that might be more about our values. It doesn't have to be one thing, but I think if you can make it more manageable, that gives you more space to be positive and less kind of being pulled in lots of different directions and just worrying that you're kind of dissipating your efforts and what difference is it going to make. So I think that helps with your well-being, and it also, I think, helps you kind of amplify your resources as well.
Love it. So that sounds like there could be a bit of a process there about understanding what you would want to connect to, aligning values, and then understanding what the charity does to see how it will how your money will have an impact on the things that matter to you.
I mean, I think giving and philanthropy is an expression of your values, absolutely. So it is, you want to see the world being more just, more equitable, or you want to preserve some important culture or habitat. Your goal is about what you want the world to be and what matters to you. So that you're kind of tapping into that. And then I think it's good that people within that do different things. So, some people respond to disaster appeals, and that's great because that money is needed. It's needed quickly. You need people to respond. Other people want to support, if you're saying, I don't know, I'm really interested in dementia, for whatever reason, a family connection or just, thinking about the future. And you can say, I can do something that's a charity that's about very directly supporting people who have dementia now and, helping them live well, helping their carers, supporting in all sorts of ways within my community. But you can also say, actually, I really want us to change our society to be dementia family, or I want to fund research that means we understand this and we're helping into the future. And we need people, across all of those things. And that's true for every issue, like you say, for homelessness, for mental health, for all sorts of things. So I think it's great that people come with their different interests. But I think if you feel like it's all down to you, or you feel like you have to do everything, then that's really tough on well-being.
Yeah. I'm just, this is a little bit naughty question to ask, but I'm just curious when you might have somebody that you advise who wants to give money to something that maybe isn't particularly making the world a better place, but it's a bee in their bonnet. It's something that they've got a thing about. I don't know. A conspiracy theorist who wants to support chemtrails campaigning or some silly thing like that. Apologies to anybody listening who believes in chemtrails. I think they're an absolute nonsense. And just the first thing I could think of was a silly thing. If you get somebody wanting to do that, do you guide them away from it, or is that not really what you can do? Sorry, this is a bit of a naughty question.
No, it's a good question. And the ethics of philanthropy advice is something I talk about quite a lot. And people will have different approaches and different lines. So some people it's their money. Philanthropy is a voluntary effort. I can support whatever cause. That's not my place. And other people are like, if they're not trying to, create an equitable, just world in these progressive values, then I can't help them. I mean, I have lines I probably won't go into. There will be
Yes.
things where I won't be able to support somebody with,
Yeah.
if they're going to, I don't know, fund draconian LGBT laws in Uganda at the moment. That's
Yeah.
not going to be where I will feel able to help them. And I'll have to explain that and walk away. But most people, and I have to say all my clients are lovely and trying to do good things, and I guess they're drawn to me because of my values. I'm drawn to them because of theirs. So it's not a huge issue. What I think is more, it will come up and people will have their lines. But I think what's actually more common is more about the way people do their giving.
Okay.
So I think there are ways people give that I will be challenging, um, probably more than what they want to give to.
Okay.
And that's because you can give in ways that cause problems for the recipients and that don't really respect them. So if you come with quite a kind of ego-driven, top-down, I want this charity to do this for me,
Yeah.
and be quite directive and specific and restrictive and quite demanding,
Yeah.
that's actually really difficult. And that sort of behavior, when it happens, I would be involved in kind of explaining it. It's you're bringing the funds, charities bringing the expertise. It's about a partnership to achieve a greater good. And actually, some of the traditional practice can get in the way of that. So
Mhm.
if you're placing a burden on the recipient to kind of give you lots of information in very short, or want change really quickly in ways that aren't realistic, I think it can cause problems. So you
That
kind of
that
want people to be generous and say, look, I'm supporting you. I understand what you're trying to do. I'm backing you. Use these funds in whichever way you see
Yeah.
fit.
Yeah.
I appreciate change takes time. It's difficult. It's complicated. Let's work alongside each other for a good amount of time, and let's, see what can happen. So to me, that's quite important. It's the how you're coming into it.
I can imagine that comes up quite a lot. I mean, I've been involved with a trustee of a number of charities. But my first experience of something like this was being a governor at my local junior school many years ago. And I learned a very important lesson because I made the mistake that I saw a lot of other people making when they wanted to be governors, which is if you want to support something to help them achieve their aims, you go in and you say, I'm here, I've got a bit of time, what can I do? What I did, and so many other people were doing, especially with the school governor, is your communication is rubbish, so I'm going to become a school governor so I can make that better. And of course, the head's going, well, I don't think our communication is rubbish. And it just end up in an argument. So if you get involved with something because you want to help them achieve their aims, great. If you want to do something because you think you want to change something, that can end in tears, can't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. And the same would be true for volunteering as well. It's kind of like, I think you said there were some dangers in that, which there can be.
Yeah.
It the motive, the intention, and the way you do things is really important, so that
Yeah.
you're supportive.
Yeah. So if somebody's sitting there thinking, oh, maybe I've got £100 a month spare that I could spend, or I've got some time I could spend, or
Yeah,
maybe they've got an inheritance, or maybe they're writing their will. All of those things are
yeah.
philanthropy, aren't they? There's a few questions that there might be in their head. One of them that is always I've always wondered about: is it better to focus on one place to give to, or is it better to spread your time and money around?
So I think generally, and I sort of said this a little bit better, it's hard to kind of be pulled in lots of different directions. You can say, I want to give a certain amount to all these causes, and that's fine. You know, absolutely you can. If you kind of want to feel a bit more connected, a bit more engaged, I think it's easier to have a narrower focus so that you can learn, you can develop over time of like, oh, I really understand this issue and I can see what they're needed and I can think about it. I can bring other resources in here because it's an area that I get, so I can talk about it to other people and get them involved. Those ripples I think are easier. Whereas when you've kind of got a list, it's harder to be as engaged and to learn about all of them. Um, it's yeah, I think that's the sort of biggest thing. Obviously, it matters more at scale. If we're giving, several £10 a month, that's kind of okay. And charities are fine with that. They rely on those everyday givers. But I think if you're thinking about it as the gift in your will, or you're thinking at it as a significant donation, I think to spread it thin is you can kind of dissipate some of the impact that you could have, because with a chunk of something, you might be able to make something happen that wouldn't, or you might be able to pay for something that a charity needs, but it's harder for them to kind of gather it from other resources, because it's potentially a bit of a boring thing that they need an evaluation or research for, that you can come in and kind of make that happen when it wouldn't. So I do think some sort of focus is good, but I think all giving is important, and everybody can give more, I think, pretty much, even though I know we've got really hard times and cost of living, but I think we can all step it up.
Can you give us a perspective from the charity's point of view? So suppose somebody, there's a particular cause, and there's a charity that does that cause. How would the charity like to be approached?
So I get a nice job sometimes when I do get in touch with somebody and say, look, I'm working with a donor, they're interested in supporting your work, can we have a conversation? Now, that's a lovely kind of email to get as a charity, except they don't know who I am. I mean, I've had scam Mackenzie Scott emails. I don't know if you have. I think I had one yesterday. They're going to give me £1 million if I reply to this email. So charities have to be cautious, quite rightly. So they will check me out, and I will have done my research into them first. And I kind of say, look, I can't guarantee this is going to turn into a donation, but I genuinely think you'd be well advised to spend half an hour with me. And that's what I'm asking of you. So we can have that conversation, and then I can be open and honest about where it might go, where it might not go, what the donor's interested in, what they might not be, and the sort of timescale we're talking, the sort of amounts they're talking. So it's trying to be as open and honest as I can be in that situation. And I think I'd like to feel that that's welcomed. I'm kind of being respectful, say, check me out, make sure I'm legitimate. I know you're busy, but can you give me this amount of time? I think it's worth your while. Charities generally, I mean, the kind of mystery sum is always lovely, but they do also want a relationship. They want to be able to thank the donor. They want to be able to say what they're doing. They're proud of
To
their
meet
work.
and to share the impact of what they're doing.
They want to say, this is brilliant, thank you. And they want to say, this is what we're doing. We're excited. We're telling you about, or this is hard for us. Is there anything you can do to help us? So charities generally want a relationship. I think it's about being proportionate, how much they've got plenty of other things they need to be doing. So it's kind of like, how easy can you make it for them? Do you need some separate information, or is there an existing report? Can you do as much research yourself before you ask them to kind of provide you with anything? And yeah, I think charities, have to be careful with their time, because that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to make a change in the world. They've got plenty of other demands on their time.
I'm guessing from what you've said earlier on, Emma, that a charity would prefer a no strings attached donation than you need to use it for this, or put my name on the building, or whatever it might be.
I think if you ask anyone, and I'm sure you've had fundraisers on here, they want as much money as you can give for as long as you can, with as few restrictions as you can make. And there's a dialogue within that, because they'll understand that sometimes trust needs to build in a relationship. So it might be a smaller gift at first, because you're building that relationship and trying to learn. They understand that some funders need to put a restriction because they can only give to Bristol or whatever. So it's fine, but I think again it's about having that open dialogue. But yeah, the least restriction. I mean, I've certainly interviewed charity leaders recently, and it's tricky if your money's tied up and somebody else is directing how it's allocated, when they don't know, as how best it can be allocated. That's quite a tricky position to be in.
Yeah. In your brilliant book, Advising Philanthropists. It really is such a great read. There's something you talk about today, having a head or a heart approach. Could you describe those two, which I think are opposite ends of the spectrum? Is that right?
They are, or I kind of think you need both, but that's my personal opinion. But there is that idea that, giving with the head is very much about, is this going to be effective? Is this going to be the best, most impact I can make with my money? Is this, so you're kind of getting into metrics and evidence base and that kind of objective thinking with your giving, which is important because your money's precious and you do want it to go out and do the most good it can in the world. And then at the other end is the heart, which is very much you're kind of ruled by kind of compassion and reaction. You go, I want to help people and I'm giving with love and support. I personally think both have their place. I don't think it's an either or. I think it's quite hard to sustain your philanthropy if you're not emotionally connected and passionate and caring about it.
And presumably that's where the well-being comes from as well.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
But you also kind of want to be careful and make some decisions about, in this world, listen to the expertise, listen to what people are saying, listen to the community, what is it that they want, what is it that's making the most difference, what is the need. So there is objectivity in there, that it's not just about what you want, but it's about what's the data telling us, what's the situation telling us, what is needed. So I think they both come together, and it does make it harder, I think, to sometimes it therefore makes it easier to support the things that are more direct and more obvious. And actually philanthropy can be really useful on areas like prevention or changing a system or doing some of the mindset change stuff that is long term and difficult. And it's hard for some people to then be emotionally engaged with that. So there is some interesting work that's kind of, I know people are looking into, of like, how do we help people to be emotionally engaged and feel well-being around things like prevention, because they're needed, but how do we kind of get the heart to go?
You can't see the impact of prevention, can you?
About prevention, exactly.
Yeah, you can't see the impact of prevention because by definition there isn't any impact. That's what you're doing. Yeah, that's
exactly. So it's a really tricky one, and with system, with wanting to change a system, it's relative. People are more like to say, I would like to help, young people feel better in terms of their mental health or their mental well-being, or support them. It's hard to say, what is it that's making young people anxious, and what are all these different factors going on, and how do they all interlink, and what can we do about those as a society? And some people are fascinated by that and are working in that space, but I think it can sometimes be harder to kind of get that connection to things that are a bit more theoretical, like how do we change the economic system and how do we change the education system, which are good things to be exploring, but not necessarily where people are giving. So that's why I think head and heart are both good.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. That particularly touches something with me because of lifestyle prescribing. My wife is very involved with preventative medicine, and you don't. It's a lot easier to give money to something that's putting plasters on people or giving them chemotherapy or whatever it might be, because you can see the impact. But creating awareness that actually you can reduce the chances of getting cancer if you live a better lifestyle, that you don't see the impact of. So I get that, but that's a very, very interesting point. Now, just to finish up, Emma, I would like to a lot of our listeners are advisors. And there's something you said when you spoke at the first Institute of Financial Wellbeing conference, online conference. There's a comment that you made there which really, really resonated with me, which was, you said that the amount of giving in the UK is horrifically low. The amount of money, I think the last statistic I heard was that the average amount of money that somebody with 10 million or more in assets, the average amount that they give to charity a year is something like £4,000 a year. And given that some people give hundreds of millions, that means that most people probably don't give anything at all. And you made the comment that advisors have a responsibility, or in many ways, I'm paraphrasing you, but you said that the reason a lot of people don't discuss it with their advisors is because they feel a bit embarrassed, and that it's the advisors actually have a duty to be the ones to raise this. Now, am I representing your words fairly in that?
I do think advisors have a responsibility to talk about philanthropy or giving, if that's more comfortable, because there are lots of lovely, generous people out there, and actually a lot of people with less money are more generous. But I do think, as a society, we want people who have more money to give more. Or I do, and I think they are in a position to do more. And I think we have kind of luxury magazines that celebrate, these lifestyles of you can stay in this hotel and this is the holiday to have and this second home and the whatever. And we seem quite comfortable with people using their money to buy stuff. And I just would like some of that attention and appeal to also be on giving and philanthropy. I feel it's a social duty, and I feel like more people can do more, and I would like to see them do more. The need is huge. The prize of unlocking that money and it going to do good is amazing. And I would, philanthropy can't do everything. Obviously, it's not, even if everybody ramps it up, it hasn't got the scale, but it can do more, and we can do more, and wealthy people can give more. So I think as a financial advisor, if you can just introduce the giving into the conversation like it's normal, and start having that conversation, and they don't have to have all the answers, but there's people like me and there's lots of other people that are philanthropy advisors. They just can say it exists, go out and you can have help with this. You don't have to do it on your own. But I think just creating that normal. And actually, what's interesting is the embarrassing thing. The data says that clients want their advisors to talk to them about it.
Yeah.
And actually, lots of people are giving, and they want to be doing more, and they want to, certainly with the younger generations coming in and talk about their purpose and their impact in the world is much more significant. And actually, it's often the advisors that don't want to bring up the topic because it's not their skill area, and they don't want to therefore introduce a topic that they're not expert in. And I would like them to kind of get over that. They don't have to know it all. They don't have to be expert. But I do think there's a role for starting those conversations and saying, what giving are you doing? Would you like any help with your philanthropy? What are you thinking about? How can I help you? What are you, can I suggest some resources? Can I suggest some advisors that can help you? It's just bringing it into the conversation like it. Of course, it's something you'd like to do because some people haven't thought about it, and then you can kind of crack that spark and go, "Oh, interesting,"
Or even better, maybe somebody has thought about it, is doing it a little bit, but not very well, not very organised, and then the advisor can get in and help.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's a lovely, lovely spot to finish on, Emma. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been absolutely fascinated by it, and well done on your book. It's really, really, really good.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Well, fascinating interview. What a lovely woman, actually. She sounded like a really nice person, if I'm allowed to say that. I know we were always told at school not to use the word nice, but I mean, she sounded like a wonderful person.
Yes, I agree. She's a lovely timbre to her voice, actually. She's just somebody you want to listen to. Yeah.
And I like the way she talked about, towards the end of the interview, she sees philanthropy as a social duty. And that really chimed with me. I mean, obviously, you can't tell people that they have to be philanthropic, but I think if you get into your consciousness, into your mind, that it's a really important way for you to make a contribution to society. I think that's a really good driving force.
I completely agree. I particularly feel that about community involvement, actually, giving of time. I think everybody should be. I know, Tom, you're currently coaching kids at rugby. Don't just stand on the touchline, get involved.
Yeah,
David.
I mean, that's something Chris and I have done, and we've referred to it several times on the podcast. We've both been involved with our local cricket club, coaching kids, and certainly time over. If I look at it, made me think a lot about my philanthropy and what I do and what I don't do. And certainly time is something I've always given on various voluntary bodies, as a school governor, as a parish councillor, helping out the cricket club. And I think that's a really good way of making a contribution, if money is tight. But there's another thing that I do as well, which was sparked by, she said in the interview, she said, sometimes people think, I can't give any money because it feels like it's too much. I'm a member of an organisation called 500 Reasons. Now, 500 Reasons was set up by somebody I know back in 2017, and there are now several groups around the country. If you want to find out more about it, just Google 500 Reasons. But most simply, what we do is, there are 500 of us-ish, and we all give £1 a week, set up a direct debit, and £1 a week goes into this organisation. If you have a cause that you think is a worthwhile cause, somebody who you think is deserving of a bit of a financial assistance, you can nominate them to the committee of people that run 500 Reasons, and every week they give somebody 500 quid. And so it's a way of making a small amount of money turn into something a little bit more meaningful that could have a real impact on somebody's life. And obviously £1 a week, I don't notice it. It just goes out. And every so often I see something and I go, oh, that's good. We ought to try and help out with that. And I will make a nomination, or other people do. And every week we get an email from the organisers saying, this is who we're giving the money to this week. And it's a really simple and effective way of being part of something that can, make a significant difference to somebody else. So I would recommend that to people.
That's a
if
lovely
they want
idea.
to do something on it. Yeah, it's a really nice idea. And it just makes you feel that you're doing something good that doesn't really take up much of your time or indeed much of your money.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look, I was listening with my ear as a financial planner. With my hat as a financial planner on, just trying to think about how these conversations come about, and they do. But it did really make me think, if those financial planners are listening and these conversations are coming up, go and contact Emma, get her involved. Bring her as a consultant into those discussions with your clients. I think the website is, and we'll put this in the show notes, is emmabeeston.co.uk. Beeston is with 2 E's. I just found it fascinating. It just broke it down really simply and brought out some key aspects. I love the 5 T's, by the way. That idea of treasure, time, talent, ties, and testimony. I don't think I did it quite in the right order. But we all have a talent, and we often have some time. Not everyone has treasure. So I just thought it was brilliant.
I'd like to just close with a couple of thoughts, if I may. One of them is, for the financial advisors and planners that are listening, the takeaway for me is that your clients want to talk about this, but they probably won't raise it. That was one of Emma's messages. So you need to be the one to raise the question, and you will be surprised at how many people really want to talk about this subject, but they just don't like to mention it. So it's your job to mention it. And the second thing is, there's a line from the Archbishop Desmond Tutu from the Book of Joy, which I quote all the time. And it's really important. Although we can say everybody should give more, we should do this, you should do that. Actually, do you know what? Be selfish about it. Because, and this is the line from the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, joy is your reward for the giving of joy. So actually, giving is kind of selfish too. It's okay. It makes you feel good.
Win-win, right? Win-win. Just on that, if you're a financial planner and you're doing a cash flow planning exercise, and it's clear that somebody has more than enough, there's a great trigger. But also, just because somebody's wealthy, don't get lazy in thinking that you shouldn't create a longer term cash flow financial plan for them to tell them they have enough, because that could be a great opportunity to discuss this exact subject.
Amen.
Yeah. Very true, and I think giving is always relative as well. We might think, "Oh, I'm a bit skint. I can't really afford to give any time. I'm too busy, or give any money because I just don't have it." But then look at some of the people that would benefit from what you can give, and I think you can always find resources within your own life to give, even if it's a very, very small amount, even if it's £1 a week. I think you can always find something.
Yeah, and David, just to and labour the point that she made about philanthropy. It's a word, and I love the fact that community are trying to get back control of that word. And it is all relative. Philanthropy isn't just the big billionaire boys. It's all of us. It can be all of us. It's just on different scales.
Well, it's been a really interesting chat as ever. Great interview, Chris. I hope you've got something from that at home. And I hope you'll join us next time for another one in our long-running series of financial wellbeing podcasts.
If you want to be notified of upcoming podcasts, make sure you click the subscribe button. For more information on the topics discussed in today's podcast and to purchase a copy of the Financial Wellbeing book, please visit www.financialwell-being.co.uk. We'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas on financial wellbeing. You can send us an email at contact@financialwell-being.co.uk. You can follow us on Twitter @FinWellbeing. Chris is Ovation Chris, and David is @Dave_Backwell. This has been an Ovation Finance production. Thanks for listening to the Financial Wellbeing podcast. More interesting than you might think.